Okay, nice, easy one. Next, PerInstanceRandom and PerInstanceFade. When we're dealing with rendering objects in Unreal, we have two ways to render static objects. One is as just a static mesh. So if I create a cube, there we are. This is just a static mesh, but we can also do instance rendering. And so if we paint some foliage, which I'm not going to do now, but hopefully you've done before, what we're doing is we're painting instances. And effectively we're telling the engine to render it in two different ways. Either we're saying load in this model, render it here, and that's the static mesh way, and then you load in the next model and you render it there, and you load it in and you render it. Or we can say, right, we're going to render this cube 500 times. Let's load it into memory once and then instance those positions. And roughly that's sort of what's happening. So that's why we can get away with so many foliage meshes compared to static meshes, because they're being instance rendered. They are quicker or easier to render for the engine. Disadvantage of that is we can't adjust a material per object because we don't have access to it, and so there are two material nodes that allow us to do that. One is PerInstanceRandom, which will give every instance rendered mesh a random value, and then the other is PerInstanceFade. And so you can set your foliage instances to fade close to the object. It's not going to do anything here or close to your camera, and that will give us some additional information. I don't think these are set up to fade. They are not. So if you have fading foliage in the foliage settings, you can access the amount they've been faded out, which you might want to use to, say, reduce the normals or adjust the roughness, or more usefully, PerInstanceRandom. And so here I've manually created 6 instances. Let's not save anything in the blueprint. And you can open this up and have a look at the construction script and how that's done. I'm manually adding some instances, and each one has a random value, and as you change that, it should give you a different value each time as we're randomizing that. So a way of getting a random value per instance. If you've not checked it out yet, you can also have a look at the vertex interpolator. And we can use that with a object position, and we can use that to create randomness per instance as well. Bit more control doing it this way. This way is the sort of the inbuilt version, but yeah, check that out as well. So PerInstanceRandom and PerInstanceFade. So useful when you're doing with foliage to get values, randomization or fading.